Welcome to Solitary RPG. One of my other hobbies is painting miniatures. I've spent over the last decade painting miniatures for a variety of different games. Most people think of miniature games, they think Games Workshop, which, yes, I'm a big fan of the models of Games Workshop, and I have painted thousands of Games Workshop models. As a matter of fact, I'm painting one right now. This is a model I'm using for a Blood Bowl team. This is a Forge World model, and this is going to be used as a troll. It's going to be a proxy model, but I'm finishing that model up now. Well, one day I was painting a centerpiece model for my buddy's army, and a centerpiece model usually is a leader or a captain or one of the main models for your army, the centerpiece of your army. Everything kind of fills in around that one particular model. And while I was painting the model, the box that GW had put the model in, over the years they've changed the way they package their models. And because this was a larger character model, there was this nice piece of art printed on the packaging inside the box. And I just thought to myself how cool it would be to do something with this piece of art instead of just throwing it away. So I kind of started thinking about it, and somehow I came across the idea of making a dice tray out of it. And what I did is I went to the hobby store and I picked up a wooden box, the hexagon type wooden box, cut it down, cut the art, put it inside, stained up the wooden box, and just poured resin on top of the art, and I made this really nice dice tray. And when I gave him his model and the dice tray, he was more excited about the dice tray than the paint job on the model, even though he liked them both. But the dice tray was just something that I did, and it was over the top, and he was really appreciative of that. So today I thought I'd share a little video about the process in which I do making these dice trays. Lighting is going to be an issue in this video, simply because this has got a resin pour inside of it, and it's a clear resin pour, so any of my light is going to reflect, so you may get some bright flashes. So just be aware of that. And they are really nice dice trays. That was loud, but I do enjoy rolling them. It's because the resin pour makes them pretty loud. So how did this all begin? And again, it was the inspiration from Games Workshop and their art. Over the years, GW, or Games Workshop, has changed tremendously on how they package their products. And they started putting in more art into the box sets. And most of the art is just a big sheet of paper like this. And it's designed to separate in the big box sets that they sell. It's designed to separate the plastic from the paper components, and it's just a little bit of cushion or protection for the two products, so that there's something, so it just doesn't damage the paper products. And that's all it is. So it's really designed as a throwaway item, because these sometimes will get chewed up with the plastic, based on shipping and things like that. They'll get like indentations and they'll get ruined. This particular one came from a Kill Team box set, and it's actually in really great shape. And for me, there's like a couple opportunities to make a really nice dice tray, either using this image here or this image here, just depending on how big my dice tray is and what I want to actually focus on. This character, it's not the most exciting. I do think this action scene is pretty cool, because I could, with a dice tray, get all of that imagery into a dice tray. But that is what my inspiration came from, is mainly, with GW art and the new way they're doing packaging. There's just a lot of this art, and a lot of it just gets thrown away. And I've been saving mine for a long time, and I know other people have saved theirs as well. And because a lot of friends of mine have given me their art pieces that they've held on to from Games Workshop, just because they're like, I'm not going to do anything with it, and what I do in return is I usually make them a dice tray with a piece of the art that they really like, and then I just take the rest of the art and I hold on to it. And then when I feel inspired, I make dice trays out of it. So GW is one place. There's also other sources of inspiration I can get art from. You know, you can look at any books and magazines and art prints and things like that. Any type of paper product you can pretty much use for inspiration to make these dice trays. There are some challenges though. Photocopying. If I run a piece of art off my computer onto my from a printer, that quality of print doesn't hold up good with the resin. Here's an example of that. This is a dice tray I made for an upcoming event that my buddy and I host. We have a streaming channel for painting miniatures, and we host 2 events a year. One's called the Grumble Bowl, the other is called the 40K OG. And I made this piece of art from just the image itself off a colored printer, put it in a dice tray, but the resin reacted pretty uniquely to the paper, and it doesn't give you the same look. Like this, you can see the difference in the quality. This is an actual print, cardboard print from the GW box set, Dominion, that I used, and then this is the photocopy off a copy machine. And it's just not the same quality. It's still fine. It still works just fine as especially for a prize support piece. But again, it's just there are problems that can arise from doing that. So I try to stick with actual art for making these, and try to stay away from copying images off of the computer, just printing images off. I guess if maybe I did some really high end of printing, it would probably be okay. But for most, copy machines at home, you're not going to be able to get that kind of quality. So anyways, let me kind of walk you through some of the things I use to make these dice trays. A dice tray starts out as just a plain pine box like this. Most of them are super tall because these are like shadow boxes that you would hang on your wall and put knickknacks and momentums in, and you want them pretty deep. And what I do is I take them to my table saw and I cut them down. And I pretty much cut them almost in half. Not quite in half, but pretty close. It just depends. Sometimes I'll go a little bit taller, sometimes I'll go a little bit shallower. I am inconsistent in how deep my dice trays are. There is no consistency. But I do cut them in half, and then I save the part that I cut because none of these boxes are really made the same. They could be off just slightly. And what I'll do is I'll use the cut part as my frame to decide where I'm going to cut my image from. So like I said, this is a really great piece right there, and that would make a really nice dice tray using that. And then if I really wanted to, I guess I could put a bottom on this and make another dice tray, but I don't. I usually just throw these away when I'm done. I know that sounds wasteful, but I'm buying these dice trays for like $3 or $4 a piece. This is cheap wood, and putting a bottom on, I just don't know how good that would make that. So then I use this color wash tint that I get from the hobby store. This is from a company called Tattered Angels, and I'll put a link in the description below to their website. Normally it's $2.99. This one was on sale for 74 cents. When they were reducing the prices at Hobby Lobby, I just bought them all that I could because I use this stuff quite a bit. And about a half a bottle does an average dice tray. Larger dice tray, probably going to take up a whole bottle. But this is water-based, and I just put it on with a paintbrush. And I like that because there's no chemical, there's no smell. It's just a water-based product. It's almost just like putting food coloring on. It's not hard to put on. Now, because it is water-based, if you're not familiar with wood and how wood works, If you put water-based products on, it will actually start to open up the pores in the wood and make the surface rough, so you kind of have to sand it down. And that's why you're putting a few coats on, because you're really trying to get that stain to penetrate into the wood. And then my last, I'll put a coat on, I'll give it a gentle sand to try to get some of that roughness off, but I'm not going for 100% smooth. Um, I don't put that much effort into making it super smooth, but my last pass on it will be with some triple aught steel wool or super fine sandpaper, just to kind of get the rough edges off. But that's one of the downsides to using a water-based product, is opening up the pores. And if you put it on too heavily, especially since this wood is like a plywood, which means it's layers of wood, it will actually split the wood. So small coats, just getting color on and just doing it slowly. It's a process. But you can, if you're patient, and that's one of the things with painting that you learn is patience. You can get the colors on, and they've got a variety of different colors. This is the green, and you put one coat on, it goes on super light, it's super bright, and then as you put more coats on, it gets darker, like this red. I got 3 or 4 coats on here, making it almost like a burgundy versus just a bright red. So that is one of the cool things about this, is the more coats you put on, the darker it gets, and you can kind of balance that based on how many coats you're putting on. Like I said, I make these for my friends as gifts. I make these for prize support. So this is going to be given away at an upcoming event in August called the Grumble Bowl. It's a Blood Bowl tournament. That's why I'm painting a Blood Bowl miniature, because I paint a new team every time we play. And this is going to be prize support. We also have another event coming up called the 40K OG. And if you're interested in miniature painting, my buddy and I stream on Facebook Saturday mornings. It's called What's New with Mike and Jeff. I'll put a link below if you're interested in watching miniature painting. But this is what I make the dice trays for, also is for prize support. So this is for the Grumble Bowl. We'll be hosting that event in August. We're also hosting an event called the 40K OG. And this is the dice tray I made for that. So this piece of art, it was actually a piece of the packaging cardboard. So GW, like I said, has really ramped up their packaging and including this amazing art. Well, this was actually on cardboard, and you can tell, like you can see the lines right here. That's how the resin responded to the cardboard, but it actually looks really cool for this dice tray. And this is the largest dice tray I've ever made. This thing is massive, and it's got a huge amount of resin inside of it. You can't really see the depth, but it's probably about 1/8 of an inch of resin. And this is just a massive dice tray for rolling. Oh man, good roll, 3 6s. But the reason I wanted it so big is 40K is a game that requires a lot of dice, and you roll a lot of dice. And I've made prize support dice trays for the event before, and people have actually started keeping their armies in the dice trays because they're bigger. Just because some of the armies are elite and they're small, and this is not a big tournament where we're playing 2,000 point armies. This is a smaller tournament where we're playing 50 power level, which is about 1,000 points, so you don't have as many models. And we just made a really nice big dice tray for it. And this piece of art came with the recent 40K Orc release. This was the collector's edition box set with the cool book and all the new models. And this was a piece of art that was inside of it, so I decided to make a cool little dice tray out of it. So yeah, I'll make these for prize support for different events, because I think it's fun, and it's just a great way to support the community and the hobby that I love so much. Another dice tray I made recently was for a friend of mine who plays Thousand Suns, and Thousand Suns have kind of a turquoisey kind of a color to it, so I wanted the dice tray to kind of match the color for his army. And this piece of art was actually GW gives out art prints a lot of times at conventions, and I've gone to plenty of conventions. I've collected a lot of art prints over the years, and this is just one of the art prints. It's on a really thick card, and I just liked this image, and I thought he would appreciate it as a dice tray, so I made this for him. And when I was talking to you about the splitting, you can kind of see right here how that splits. And that's because these square dice tray boxes that I'm getting aren't the greatest quality. And they just, for some reason, I get a lot of splitting with them. So I end up having to glue them and then paint over them. This one I still need to finish. I just need to hit that with a turquoise paint to kind of fill that in, so it's not as noticeable. But yeah, this was just a fun dice tray I made for my buddy. Another one that I made was this one. So this is for Space Wolves. This is an image that my friend sent me. Again, this was a photocopy. So I took an image off the computer, printed it on a colored printer, so you can see the difference the art takes on with the resin. Again, resin is a two-part chemical product, and it heats up and it changes the color for some reason on the paper, and I'm sure it's the paper quality that's causing it, or the print material, the ink itself. I don't know. I'm not a chemist, but it still turned out good. And this was actually a dog food bowl I picked up at a home goods store, and I cut it down and I refinished the stain, and I put his art in there and I poured the resin on it, and I made him this awesome dice tray for Space Wolf Army. And it's just great for rolling dice, and I like it. And he'll be getting this in August. It's actually my buddy Jeff, who I co-stream with, and he'll be picking this up in August. This is what the dog food bowls kind of looked like when I bought them. This is a different style one. This was one of the first ones I was just kind of experimenting with. I had this cool sticker from Exalted Funeral, and I was like, oh, that'd be cool at the bottom of a dice tray. And I bought these dog food bowls. I bought like 3 or 4 of them, and I just put the sticker and poured it. It didn't, like, it's too tall. This is just ridiculously too tall for a dice tray. You really have to look over. I probably should have cut this down, probably to there, take out this piece and then just restained it. And I still might do that. But this was just one, like, again, I just used a sticker. So there's a lot of things that you can use for art. You don't actually have to have physical art. You can use a sticker. Dice trays don't actually have to just be for dice trays. They can have other uses as well. So this particular tray that I made, and this is actually the lid that comes for this particular size dice tray. It actually fits on just like that. Granted, the tray's already been cut. They're usually taller than this, but this is actually the lid for it. And what I'm doing with this dice tray is one of the games I have called Into the Weird and Wild has a mapping component to it, where you roll dice on a hex grid, and where the dice land is where you put elements. Well, rolling on just a sheet of paper, dice have a tendency to bounce off the piece of paper. So I wanted to keep the dice contained to the area I was rolling, so I just enlarged the hex grid, printed it off on paper. Again, you can see kind of the weirdness that printed images take with the resin and the glues that I'm using to hold the paper down. It's not, I kind of wish I would have went to the office store and maybe did a better quality print. Haven't figured that one out yet. But anyways, I just use this. This is just something I had laying around, and I was like, instead of just throwing it away, I tried to find another practical use for it. And this is for Into the Weird and Wild. So when I'm rolling up the elements for hex exploration, I can just keep my dice in one place. if you stayed with my video so far, this is for Morgborg, one of my favorite games. And this particular wooden box was actually sold as a pet coffin. I know it sounds creepy, but that's what it's actually sold as. And what I did is I took the lid off and I reattached the lid to the bottom. I just put decals or stickers here. These are just letter stickers. Wrote out Morkborg, spray painted the inside black, and then sanded it down to give this black shading effect that you can see here. And then inside, this is now the lid, and I keep my specific dice for when I play Morkborg in this dice tray because they're all the black and yellow, which is basically the color for that game is black and yellow. They like to use a lot of yellow in their prints, especially on the cover. So I went ahead and made a special dice tray just for the game. And when I play that game, this is the dice tray I use for it. So I actually have specific dice trays for games now. I'm kind of geeky that way. And the last dice tray I wanted to talk about is the dice tray that I'll be using for this channel. I made this really small dice tray and I used really small dice, but for video purposes, I think this little dice tray is perfect. And I actually had stickers made of my orc head that my buddy Jason was able to, he didn't create it, but he bought it and he was able to manipulate the images. He's a graphics design artist. That's what he does for a living. And he was able to make my logo for me, and he was able to take the logo apart and give me all the different components. I had stickers made. I know that's a long explanation, but that's how it came to be. So anyway, so I got stickers made. I made this little dice tray. This is a very small dice tray, and these are very small dice, as you can see in my hand. But I thought this would be good for the channel, for rolling dice, because it's small enough not to take up a lot of room on my recording desk. So that way, when I need to roll dice for any particular reason, I have a little dice tray, and it's got the logo in it. So I just thought that was very fitting. So anyways, that was my video just talking about dice trays and my creation of these dice trays. Again, just some wooden boxes that I pick up over at the hobby stores that are used for wall decorations. And I use this color wash tint from Tattered Angels. Cut the boxes down, sand them up, put some stain on them, put some art in them, pour some resin. If you're not familiar with pouring resin, you would want to research that. It's a two-part process. Depending on where you are, depends on what would be available to you. But it's usually a 50-50 mix it up real well, pour it in the tray, and you're good to go. So anyways, thank you for watching and have a great day. Bye.